Hi, this is Tim Wilson with the Resort Trades, Ask Mendo TV, and I'm here with Ross Perlmutter. And Ross is the president and the CEO and the head honcho of the Canadian Resort Developers Association, and we have had a blast for the last couple of 3 days up here in Toronto at their convention. And Ross, you know, right off the bat, you got a lot of American companies up here also, and your keynote speaker today was the president of the American Resort Developers Association. But let's start first talking about maybe the differences between Canada and America as far as the developers go. Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's definitely a difference. I mean, we certainly have a difference in scope and scale. Canadian developers tend to be a much smaller operation in general than the U.S. For that reason, I mean, we haven't seen a lot of the major brands here. I've asked them point blank, when are you coming to Canada? And they just don't have the scope and scale to make it sort of worth their while. So they tend to be a little bit smaller, more mom and pop type operations. We've got companies that are sort of moving in multi-destination directions, but it tends to be a little bit smaller in scale that I've experienced from most of the U.S. companies.
Well, you know, I grew up in that side of the industry in America back in the 70s and 80s, where I was a developer. Also, my family was a developer. My dad was a developer. And back in those days, it was all, you know, a guy does a resort.
Right.
And it was a single developer. As a matter of fact, the trade was kind of built on that, dealing with single developer operations. So,
right.
Now, but CRDA, you guys have been coming on like locomotion. I mean, the association is working on all four cylinders. Everything's working great. Tell us a little bit about your show here. Like I said, I noticed that you have a tremendous successful show.
Thanks very much. Yeah, we're proud of it. It's a CRDA used to be kind of a little cliquey. I don't want to say cliquey. It was a little group that we had every year. We'd have a conference, and it was pretty much the Canadian developers would get together, and we would have our annual conference. That's all it was. And then a few years ago, we decided, let's bring everybody in. Let's make it a little bit more global. Let's reach out to people. We're still not a huge conference, but I'm extremely proud of the fact that every year when we do this, people will tell me, they say, well, I've done more business in the first hour of your conference than I've done an entire weekend at some other event. We like that a lot. It's a friendly crowd. It's a very interactive. By the time you're done here, you've met absolutely everybody, and you tend to be dealing with the key decision makers. So it's great feedback for me. I'm extremely proud of that. I'm not sure I'd want to change that DNA too terribly bad to make it much bigger and lose that. So yeah, I'm proud of it. I like the direction it's headed.
Yeah, I've noticed that. I mean, this is a really tight group, and we pulled away from the reception, and they're all around the piano singing right now.
Yeah,
we're gonna have to get back. Yeah, we're gonna have to get back to that here in a minute. But now
we always say this, like no matter what, it's like you can come here. I can't promise you're going to learn anything, but you have a good time.
Yeah, that's right.
Fortunately, they're learning something while we're doing it, so I don't feel like all's for naught. But it's good.
It's been a great conference, and everybody I've talked to, I mean, it's been a fun conference, and it's you're right. It's a very tight, small conference. It's a good group, but in all reality, I mean, you had Howard from the president of ARDA was your keynote speaker. He came down here. What kind of alliances, or how's that going? What's the connection between Canada and America?
It's strong. It's interesting. For years and years, CRDA really sort of kept its distance from ARDA, and I think it was because it just feared that it would be annexed or taken over or swallowed up by ARDA. You know, quite frankly, that's not, to me, it's never been a real fear. And when I first met with Howard, probably 2-3 years ago, and we realized we had so much in common. I mean, I obviously like Howard as a person. I think I mentioned today, Howard and I have exactly the same birthday. We're both born on August 18th, so maybe there's something there. I don't know.
You're going to get birthday cards now.
Yeah, that's fine. Bring them on. But we're obviously not ARDA. We don't purport to be. We've kind of looked at them like a big brother saying, look, can you assist us? And all we've ever looked for were synergies that we could tap into. For example, if they're doing big research studies, can we possibly survey Canada at the same time, get a North American snapshot, and we'll pay, for the Canadian portion of that. And so we've been working on synergies as we go. It is kind of borderless now in terms of our markets, and the dollar, as of today, actually reached parity.
It did
at one point.
That was interesting.
And, quite frankly, a Canadian prospect is on the same level as a U.S. prospect, and we're finding a lot of interest. That's why you'll see a lot of American companies, foreign companies at our conference, because the Canadian prospects are so strong for them right now. So,
you guys always have, you also have an honesty that I love. For instance, today we had the different sessions. You threw the resale guys right there on the tabletop, and we had a down and earth discussion about resale.
that was a tough one, Tim. I got to tell you, it's like for about 3 years I've been putting these things on, and every year I've had a resale session. Every year I pulled it off, and it's because I have to wear several hats, and one of them is obviously the membership hats. And I would think it through, and I said, okay, I know how this is going to play out. We're going to put a bunch of resale people out there. We're going to have a bunch of developers, calling them all kinds of names. And I'm going to lose all my resale company members. And we're of the mind, it's like, we'd like to have everybody close to us because at least we can dialogue with them. If we keep everybody on the outside, we can't. So this year, just made a decision. Let's put it up there. I was lucky to have some resale companies, the two Jasons, and who are willing to take their arrows in the chest, and I give them points for that. It takes a lot to stand in front of a room of developers and say, "This is what I do," and I'm not running away from it. And there were no fights, so that was good.
Well, yeah, as a developer myself, and I have developer roots, and I'm still a developer. Yeah, it was interesting when they made the comment that you'd be surprised that a lot of the guys that are calling us have just walked out of your tour room, and you didn't close them, and they call us. Right. But you know what? That stuff has to be said. I mean, that's stuff that developers have to understand.
I think it's an evolution. I mean, I'm not telling you, we could not have had this session 3 years ago. They would not have got the same way. It was not. I think people are starting to realize that there are realities out there that we either have to deal with. I'm not sure we understand them. I'm not sure we've been able to solve them. I don't know that anyone has, but they certainly recognize the realities. And some of the most vociferous people that were, anti-resale companies today, I noticed that they scared me going in. I went, this is okay. I didn't get that reaction from them. They've accepted that this is something that we're going to have to deal with head on, and if we don't deal with it, we're the authors of our own misfortune.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing I saw was that when they start talking about, as a developer, if you play this correctly and clean and honestly, then your resale value will go up in the long term. And as a developer, that's what you have to. I mean, you miss the sale, but at least you have a property that your appraisal and your net worth for the sale goes up.
Well, we have a different thing, and it's really funny. You talk about the global economy. I mean, I really feel it here. And it's very much a Canadian-U.S. thing. I'll get calls about resales, and people say, "So, what's my week worth?" And I have to explain to them what's happened in the U.S. And I says, you have to understand there are people down there that can't hang on to their houses. Their timeshare is not their priority. That's not a reality in Canada. We didn't deal with that reality then. We're not dealing with it now. But your timeshare resale is in that market. Mm-hmm. So I understand that. In the real world, yeah, it's probably worth $8,000. In relative terms, in today's world, it's worth $500 because we've got people saying, please, take it off my hands. So I think it's going to turn around, but it certainly had an effect here in our market.
And I applaud you for just stepping out and handling that just face up the way you need to in business. Business is business. We have to talk about the reality. We have to understand as developers that this is the way it is. Mm-hmm. And we have to understand that there's that 1,000-pound elephant in the room that you better take care of him mm-hmm. and better address him. And I really applauded you for that. Thank you. Your other sessions, though, you had some really high-powered talent sitting here.
I was, honestly, I hate to say this, is you put them together with the best of intentions, and there's a trick to it. I try to do like left and right brain thinking. So I'll put finance opposite marketing, figuring, the marketing people don't know about finance, they don't care. And you try and go through it. But I was lucky enough to sort of go between the two sessions, and I didn't see a weak link. And that for me, that's a victory. The people that were in the rooms came out of there thinking it was nothing but positive feedback. So I'm delighted that way, and the speaker pool was terrific. I can't complain about that at all.
I'll tell you another thing I can't complain about, because now I've done this for like 30 years. But you guys get in, get it done, and get out. I mean, you do basically one hard day of sessions, and then we're having the party, and we're going home.
Well, it's interesting because we've had this discussion. We are not ARDA. We're not, we're not one of the big companies that are attracting 800, 900 people to a conference and up. So we're kind of an interesting economies of scale with us. I spoke to someone and they said, well, it'd be great if we could do another half day. I said, well, there's no such thing as a half day. It's either a full day or it's a nothing. And then a full day is a full day of cost, which means, so we're not quite at that point. I think there's demand, there's hunger there for that information. I think people would very much be interested in a 2-day conference, but I don't think we'll be doing it next year. Hopefully in the future we'll be able to do something like that.
I'll tell you what, I was impressed because, the nice thing about it is you come here, you get the straight up stuff from good people. I mean, you had excellent people. And the big thing is if you're an American developer, you might look at coming to this conference because you're going to get, for one thing, a beautiful venue. I mean, Toronto is just absolutely beautiful. But you're going to get good, clean information from the same basic people you're going to get at ARDA. You're going to get it fast, quick, hard, and you're going to get it in a very, very small package deal. If you're a vendor, supplier, you better look at this market because these guys are for real. Well,
thanks for saying that, Tim. I've always maintained that if the market dips 10%, it's like make it up in Canada. Our dollar's worth the same as the U.S. dollar, and in a lot of cases, especially with some of the fractional members, they don't know where to get this stuff. They didn't come from a hospitality background. They came from a home building background. So a lot of products here. I was probably the most gratified today to hear from our fractional members that they got a lot of real information that they didn't know. And it's because they're an open book. They're eager. They're anxious to pick up information, and it's pretty fertile ground for suppliers. I don't I think it's crazy. I can guarantee that if I was in the States and I was sort of getting the same old on the phone, I would definitely be looking to expand the market because we're right here. We speak the same language. It's not that difficult to sell into Canada, and the dollar's worth the same amount. Why not?
I've noticed that. I've as a developer, I sit on both sides of the table. I'm a developer, I guess with the magazines, but I have spoken to a lot of your developers, and it's like I say, it's almost like my back when I was younger, and it was back when you actually had people that were developing resorts rather than corporations, and the people are here. And if I was a vendor in the U.S., I would be here talking to the people. I really would. And tremendous association, and a tremendously nice guy. I've really enjoyed my relationship with you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, I appreciate it, Tim.